So it's regulation, no, adapting to regulation by design.
That's right.
By design. Now, one other issue we also discussed previously is the trust in the system, the digital system. You have to have trust, not only, let's say, related to technology, but also how it affects the trust inside society. I mean, we see it with the social media and so on. And then you have an additional complication with cybersecurity, cybercrime. My question is how you are so much exposed that something could happen. How does Microsoft deal with this whole cybersecurity and trust issue? And you mentioned already, but I would like to come back to the Ukrainian crisis because it increases the alertness. I mean, even I may add here for the World Economic Forum, you can imagine we have a great cyber security team, but you can imagine how much we invested to protect our system here when we felt particularly vulnerable. But Satya, what do you do?
Yeah, in fact, it's very related even to the previous conversation we were having on regulation. But trust, I mean, fundamentally, I think it's not something you can claim. It has to be earned. I think that's sort of the place to start. And having said that, I also think of trust, at least from a Microsoft perspective or a business perspective, is you've got to have something much more foundational, right? Which is the social purpose of the company, the business model of the company needs to have trust with the broader society. Because after all, if you don't have that, then pretty much anything you do is not going to be trustworthy. But assuming you are a trustworthy participant, because when you do well, the world around you is doing well, then I think all these considerations, privacy, cybersecurity, AI ethics, internet safety, to take four, I think are super important criteria. In all of these, what at least in engineering we call shift left is very important. What I mean by that is, take something like cybersecurity. Before we think about protection, you want to make sure by design you're building systems that are secure. So this is a place where some of the best design work, tooling work, testing work needs to be done such that any digital system that's being built is secure by design. So we are investing, same thing with AI ethics, right? So for example, what does debugging a biased AI model look like? What are the tools available to a software engineer so that they can make sure that bias doesn't get introduced? Or even moderation with internet safety. I think these are all very important ones. Or governance and privacy. For example, you can't say we will deal with privacy as an after effect, but you want to have real governance on all the data. So to me, that's, I think, at the core. So what happened, for example, in the Ukrainian case was, we were able to, because of our cyber capability, because of the trillions of signals we see, long before, quite frankly, the attack started, the Russian activity on critical Ukrainian infrastructure, and we were able to work then with the Ukrainian government to really evacuate them effectively into our cloud and protect them. And we published last month a very detailed report, because our stance is that we will always be there for any partner of ours in their defense. And so we're going to use both our security products as well as our security signal to ensure that we protect any organization that is under attack and publish all of that information so that it can be broadly shared. And so I think cyber is a place where, again, multiple stakeholders coming together to improve the cyber readiness of all of our organizations, I think is going to be very, very important. This is between governments and private organizations, and between private organizations across the globe even.
If I just may follow up here, you mentioned you did an analysis of this, let's say, protection in Ukraine. Could you share with us what the key conclusions of the analysis was?
Well, I mean, the key conclusions were that you have multiple cyber actors, sponsored in this case by the state, going after critical infrastructure that can, completely compromise the functioning of a government or the broader society. So the other piece is the weakest link can be exploited to then hit hard at everything else. So that's the other issue with in a connected world, there is no such thing as an isolated system. So a one weak link. That's why even in the United States, we care so much about every municipality, every state has to be protected. Because otherwise you will have, you can start with an attack in one small place and it can easily spread.
I come back to the answer to my first question, where you said a caring leadership. Now, Satya, we have a lot of discussions going on, and the forum was very much engaged into the development of ESG metrics. And some people, of course, would be opposed, and it has become very much also a technical matter. But you could argue, I mean, it's not a technical issue. It's an issue of corporate success, because without taking care of people, without taking care of the planet, you don't have the trust of people anymore. Would you agree? And would you feel that a company trust comes only out of how you lead the company and how people feel, or do you have to document it? Your performance in some way?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I mean, I go back, like, in some sense, the question is, what's the social purpose of a corporation or a business? Do we need businesses or not? I mean, it's a good question to ask. And, obviously, I believe that there's a social purpose of a corporation. In fact, I like that definition, Klaus, that Colin Mayer came up with, where he talks about the social purpose of a corporation is to create profitable solutions to the challenges of people and planet. And the key words for me being profitable, because after all, corporations do need to allocate their resources well so that they can generate profit for their shareholders. But the solutions are to the challenges of people and planet, which is the broad stakeholders. But I would even add one additional thing to that definition. I think every company like ours also now has to earn the license to operate in every country and community at a time, right? So when people sort of look at a multinational company and say, it's a soulless place, I mean, where do you belong? You actually have to prove that you belong everywhere you operate by creating local surplus, local benefits to the community. And so I think that that's, at least when I look at Microsoft, I feel that that's the core sense of purpose we have and the social contract we have, that in every country, when we come to Switzerland, I should be able to point out how are the small businesses of Switzerland more productive because we are participating, or the public sector more efficient, or the large multinationals of this country that are globally successful because of some input of ours. So I think that core is super important. But the interesting thing, though, is to your ESG point, it's not even let's do some ESG on the side. It's integrated into your core business model, right? So when we think about growth, it's got to be equitable growth, right? So when we are working in, let's say in Africa, we've got to ensure that we're working to create broadband connectivity infrastructure. In fact, we've done that with some of the work we've done there for around 7 million people. Or we're making sure that our own operations are planet positive. So we're doing that with our own sustainability commitments. So I think that approach to ESG, where it's not on the side, but it's integrated into the core business model and operation, I think is how we'll all be measured.
I think this word integration is very important, because I even have some difficulties when to accept when people speak about social responsibility, because a company, on the one hand, is certainly an economic unit to create prosperity and certainly to create profits. But on the other hand, a corporation is a social unit.
Yeah.
It's part of society.
I like that.
So social responsibility is a natural consequence of looking at a company as a social organism who has to take care of society.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's the core license to operate comes from that.
Yeah.
You don't get a license to operate as an economic agent, I believe. You get it because you've created surplus for the society at large.
Now, I